Good morning and welcome back. My name is Stephen Bolden and today is March 27th, 9:30 a.m. And we are going to be talking today about our Act Scheduler utility. The Act Scheduler is a built-in utility for Act to help take automated database backups and maintenance, something that every single Act user should absolutely be using. Your server or wherever your main database location is stored is where you are going to want to set this up. So whether you have your main databases on a server or on your personal computer or somebody's desktop in the office, head on over there and you'll want to be getting this connected. Even if your server has a full disk backup going on, maybe you have a third-party IT company or somebody else is handling backups through Windows Backup and scheduling utility, it's important to do something like this because most of the Act data exists within SQL tables and Microsoft SQL databases. And the structure of how this data is organized is not always so simple as copying and pasting files out of the My Documents folder. You'll see a lot of people that think that they can just copy these Act database files and they'll be golden, and that's all that you need to do is copy these files. But there's more to it than that if you want a complete backup. So regardless of the situation, I recommend everybody does this. Head on over to Tools and Act Scheduler. Now, there is no harm if you do this on multiple computers. I was saying that you should do this on every server. You could do this on other various computers if you want to have many different fail-safes in place, although that might be a little overkill, but you know, nobody ever really got mad at having too many backups. You can go to the Tools in the Act Scheduler and it will open a utility. You may get a user account control alert about it. I will say yes to run. And the Act Scheduler will show you all of the ongoing database tasks that we have set up. I have cleared all of mine out for today. So this panel shows us that we can create a new task from the list or set an existing one to delete it. We do have down here, the Act Scheduler will be running down in a little icon in our task tray. You'll see this sometimes that the Act Scheduler is or is not running once you start running this on your computer. We'll start by creating a task with the Create a Task link over here in the left sidebar. You have to find your database file. So you got to do this twice actually, but click on Browse and we will go digging to find our database. I'm going to use the Act 2018 demo as is tradition. Double click on that so it loads that in. You'll want to enter your Act username and password. You do need to be an administrator to do this. So the Act username and password of at least an administrator. I don't have a password on this demo database, so we'll click Next. And it will ask which task we want to perform. This will be database backup. Our other option is maintenance, and I'll do that next, but we'll stick with backup for right now. Proceed. Where do I want to save these backup files? I can choose a new location. The default location of putting it into the Act Backups folder will work for me in this case. Sometimes you might have a backup hard drive or a backup folder on the server or a share file that you'd rather put it instead. Just to verify that your file location looks good. Default backup file name, that will be okay. It will just take the name of the database. Usually that's perfectly fine. You should include attachments. I usually recommend against password protecting the file. Odds are very high that you might forget what that password is, and when you go to restore it, then your backups will be useless because nobody knows what the passwords are. Yeah, so I usually leave that blank, but you can password protect them if you are reliable enough to remember it. Go on next. It says, so backup file management. And here's the real key of why this is so powerful is because it will keep your backup files on a rolling schedule, on a rolling basis. The default is keep the last 5 backup files. Depending on how big your database is, sometimes I bump this up to 10 or even 14. If I set it to go every single night, for example, this means that it will have a backup full file for every single night for 2 weeks, and then just continuously deleting the oldest ones every night. I like that function, and the reason that you want to at least have more than one is better than 0, certainly, but you want to have more than one in case something happens and you don't realize it for a few days. It might be the case that one of your employees or some user has deleted 1,000 contacts inadvertently and somehow that flies under the radar for a few days. You want to make sure that you have at least enough backups going back some amount of time that you can recover that. Schedule. How often do we want to back up the database? I usually say daily, and then I say every day. You can do it just weekdays, but I don't know, these days people are sometimes working on weekends, and disk space is cheap enough. So I just say every day, and generally you want to set this outside of working hours. So sometime maybe around 6:00 p.m. That would be a good time to back up the database every night. Proceed. We have an option to set up email notifications. You can set this so that what you have to do is this has to be running on a server that has Act Premium for web in order to do this. If you're using Act Pro, I don't believe that you'll be able to send email notifications. And if you're also not running and have configured your server to send out these emails, it won't work. So normally a lot of people just skip this step, and it's not that important. It will send you an email every single night saying that the backup completed successfully or the backup failed. Then you usually want to go into your Outlook and set a rule saying to please delete all of these backup completed successfully emails, because they do get annoying. But we finish that up. And there we go. We'll go on to the next one. We say create task. So now we've got our Act demo database task backing up every single night. The next one we want to do is do the same process again, but we'll do it for database maintenance. So we start by creating a task. We have to find the database file, enter our login info, and proceed. And then for under our tasks, the only option on my list now is database maintenance, because we already have a backup operation running on this file. But I'm going to say database maintenance. And database maintenance will do an integrity check and reindex. So as your database gets used and records are added, deleted, and moved around, fragmentation can occur. This will help make sure that all fields and all data is clean and compressed for good operation. Depending on how often you run this database maintenance, I've sometimes ran it on people who have never done database maintenance before. You'll see their database file size will decrease by nearly 40%. You know, it'll drop big numbers, and that makes everything faster throughout the whole thing and prevents corruptions. Database maintenance. So yes, integrity check and reindex and proceed. A schedule for these, I usually do weekly. Again, this one is kind of arbitrary of how we determine it, but in terms of how fragmented a database can get and change, it's really not much marginal benefit to do it every day. Of course, it really doesn't hurt you. I usually have a habit of saying, run this one every week on Saturday. You know, sure, 9 o'clock a.m. is good. You want to make sure that your database maintenance operation does not happen around the same time of day as your database backup. It actually, I don't think will let you schedule them to happen within an hour of each other. The database backup will probably only take a minute or two anyway, but you want at least some time between them so that it doesn't try to run both operations at the same time. So backups are happening at 6 p.m., maintenance at 9 a.m. And there we go. Again, we can have the email notifications go out, and I will skip that for now. And now I'm all set. If you have multiple databases on your server, you will need to continue to repeat this process over and over again for each database you want backed up and have maintenance running. You'll also, let's see, if you want to edit or delete these tasks or change them, then you can do that from this task scheduler menu. You have an edit and delete. Something to keep in mind on that first step when we log into the database with a username and password. This tool is pretty reliable and will run for a long time, but if your administrator changes their username or password, suddenly the Act scheduler stops running. So if you have the wrong password entered into here, maybe a month or two from now I go in Act and I change my password for whatever reason, then that will affect my scheduler and these backups will not be running. So that's something to be very cautious of. It's why I recommend that people every, at least every year or so, or however often you get around to it, to go and log onto your server, pull up that scheduler to make sure it looks like the tasks are still running there. But it's not enough just to see the items in the list. You probably want to go dig out your folder, your file explorer, and go looking to make sure in your Act backups folder that you specified in the other one that you actually have some backups running and that you can see the backups files, the .zips within your computer. Make sure that they're all still going healthily. The Act Scheduler service, when you exit out of there, it is running down here in the task tray, something to maybe look for once in a while that you do see it in there. You'll also see it within your Windows Services menu. You can get to this by searching right there in the Start menu. You can search for Services and you'll see it, this panel that I just brought up. The Act Scheduler is a running service that you'll see on your computer here. Sometimes you can, make sure that's working. But all things said, the Act Scheduler is probably one of the more reliable Act services. I don't have too many issues with it. It's good to always verify that it stays on and stays working, because sometimes something does maybe seem to knock out those settings or make it fail. But generally, I see on a large scale, everybody's works very reliably and it does its job well. And someday somebody calls me up and says, Stephen, I damaged my computer and I need to restore my database. And I say, well, look at this. You've got, your last few days worth of backups right here, and you're in really good shape because of it. So thank you again for attending. I'm going to open up the mic for any questions, and let's hear what you have to say. Pretty much like a recurring theme of every one of my videos. For anybody watching on YouTube, probably hears me open up the mic with questions. No one asks any, but that's okay. I appreciate you guys all for attending, and for those of you watching on YouTube to stay vigilant. And I will be uploading again regularly soon. Please attend the sessions live using the links and information in the description below. Thank you.